All right, Chris, a couple things for this week's Panthers playbook. One, no loss this weekend. Panthers aren't losing. Let's go.
Undefeated.
Undefeated.
Undefeated in week 7.
Undefeated in bye weeks this season are the Carolina Panthers. Hang your hat on it. Also, injury to Jeremy Chinn. We're going to not dive into not just the injury and the impact on the field for the Carolina Panthers because Evero doesn't play him, but the impact really is the trade value of Jeremy Chinn has just straight plummeted. But we're also going to dive into the new offensive play caller, Thomas Brown. Let's get this sucker started.
The state of North Carolina covers 53,000 square miles. It is the habitat of the feared Carolina Panthers. Get dialed in, Panthers fans, for an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews, locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lee.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lee, Dennis Cox here with you. The bye week edition of Panthers Playbook. So no Panthers Playbook this coming Sunday because the Panthers aren't losing because there's no game. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's give it up for them.
Let's go. You know, we did it. Hey, you know what?
Undefeated.
Back-to-back weekends. Hey, we didn't give up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins, and we're not losing this weekend. Momentum. I like this. Peaking. We're
Shifting,
trending
baby.
in the right direction.
There is a shift right now. I can feel it.
Exactly. We are laughing through the pain like the rest of the Carolina Panthers fans that are out there. But before we get into the conversation about Jeremy Chinn, his quad injury, the trade deadline coming up, and how this impacts what the Carolina Panthers can do, we're also going to dive into Thomas Brown. But make sure you subscribe here on YouTube and also hit the likes and leave comments as well. Let us know your thoughts on what the Panthers should do at the trade deadline, who they should keep, who they should let go. Let us know your thoughts on this. I know a lot of different opinions that are out there, not just from media pundits like ourselves, Chris, but also fans as well. It's nice that we actually have the interaction with fans. But I think a lot of fans will be in agreement on the Panthers made the right move in allowing offensive coordinator Thomas Brown to take over as play caller, Chris. It had to happen. It needed to happen, and we're finally getting it.
Yeah, it's something that we've been talking about for a while, something that that other people have been calling for. And also just to think about it like this. Thomas Brown is the offensive coordinator. Like, you kind of would like to hire an offensive coordinator who you will let to call plays.
You would
Because
think.
that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Generally.
So generally, there's some coaches that like to hold on to it, but you don't really blame guys like Andy Reid because, well, you get results out of it.
Yeah.
So far, there's no results. And I know that Frank Reich has done it pretty much during his time with Indy. He called plays the entire time he was there, those 5 years, but well, I guess 4.5 really, because he got canned in the middle of last season. But still, what hasn't been working out with the Carolina Panthers. So I'm interested in seeing. Here's the thing that I noticed, Dennis. I'm interested to see if you noticed this.
Sure.
When Bryce Young talked about this on Monday to the media, it felt like it was the first time in a while we've seen Bryce Young go back to preseason. I'm happy and I'm excited, Bryce Young, because when the losses start to pile up, you start seeing that energy of his go further and further down, especially the one game after, I think it was the Minnesota Vikings game, where it felt like he was about to cry after the game. And then we got happy-go-lucky Bryce. It feels like Bryce is also excited about this. And one of the reasons that he gave is he's like, some play callers just tell you, hey, memorize the play and go out there and execute. He said Thomas Brown's the only person. I'm sorry, he didn't say only person. He said it's rare, but Thomas Brown, and I'm assuming the only person, Thomas Brown is the person who explained to him and talked him through the plays and explained why, what we're building off of, and what's the thought process behind it, and why we want to use this play and what we can do before that and after that. So that's something I'm very interested in seeing how that impacts Bryce Young.
Speaking as a former coach myself, when I was coaching lacrosse at the college level, the why was the most important thing. It's like, okay, well, I just say, just go do this. It's like, okay, the players can go do it, but they don't understand the reasoning behind it. That hey, you know what? The stuff that we might be doing in the early parts of the game is setting us up for these other things that we want to do. So the why, like, why are we looking for this? Why are we doing these kinds of things? Why are these concepts in place? The why is very important. And unfortunately, coaching, the why isn't always explained. We always talk about like developing technique and then, obviously drawing up the X's and O's, blah, blah, blah. But the why is very important. It's something that's very intangible when it comes to this. I think Bryce Young, honestly, things weren't working under Frank Reich. Now that we did hear before the season, Frank Reich saying, at some point Thomas is going to take over play calling. Not exactly sure. We're not exactly sure. But if the Panthers are 4-2 right now, I doubt Frank Reich's handing the play calling over. Let's be real. And I think Thomas Brown, knowing from the sidelines what he's seen, the communication that apparently he's having directly more with Bryce Young and him hopefully developing the game plan more, will actually unlock what Bryce Young can do. And I think Bryce Young, the frustration with Bryce Young is like, you know what? Why does every check I have at the line of scrimmage audibles a wide receiver screen? He's like he probably wants to push the ball down the field a little more. Hopefully Thomas Brown can unlock and take Bryce Young to the next level, because Bryce has played better the last couple of weeks, Chris. Let's be real. Hopefully Thomas Brown with the bye week can maybe start implementing some different stuff. Can we also see a pre-snap motion? I just want to see a pre-snap motion. That's it. That's all.
And you know what?
Something like that.
Another thing with that, like we've seen in different cases where different offensive coordinators, they do have a great impact on the guys that they're coaching. Brian Daboll, when he was working with Josh Allen, it felt like Josh Allen had his best years when he was there. And when he left, Josh Allen struggled a little bit last year. And now he's just starting to come around and has some of the best numbers in the NFL as a quarterback. We're seeing it right now with Jalen Hurts. He had his best season last year, and Shane Steichen left to become the head coach of the Colts. And even though the Eagles are winning, Jalen Hurts doesn't look his best this year.
Plays come down a little bit,
and it's not the fact that that Bryce Young looks bad, but maybe there's something to the types of plays that's going to be called. Maybe also a new voice in his ear is a little bit of motivation and can raise his level of play, because right now, and I don't know if we've seen too many situations where Bryce Young had to go out there and win you a game late. I'm sure there were some instances in Alabama. I didn't watch every Alabama game, but for the most part, Alabama was playing with leads. So I've never actually thought of, Bryce Young as the guy to go out there and win you a game. Maybe Bryce Young can go out there and win you a game because of his relationship with Thomas Brown. And also just for the fact we've been very critical of the play calling from Frank Reich. It was that 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 in the third quarter of the pass game where you're already in scoring position. You could have kicked the field goal, but you decided to go for it on the 4th and 1. We agree with that. But you have the running back stay back for pass protection, and you have 4 receivers, including Hayden Hurst, go 15-plus yards down the field. All covered. Now, those were your only options on 4th and 1. Why, Frank Reich? Why? Why were those your only options? And Bryce Young missed the throw. It was going to be a tough throw anyway in that situation because Hayden Hurst was covered. So he had to try to put it in a position that only he could get it, or it'll be incomplete, and it just ended up being incomplete, which was a smart throw from him. So I'm excited to see what Thomas Brown can bring, and I'm hoping he can bring I'm not going to say that Frank Reich's calling hasn't been coherent, but a more coherent play calling system.
I think this season now let's be real. It's an audition for Thomas Brown. It's an audition for Thomas Brown to be the play caller for this team, not only just for obviously the rest of the season, but for the future. Now, here's my one fear. This is already the second play caller for Bryce Young. This guy has 5 starts in his career, and he's already on his second play caller in his year, 5 starts into his rookie season. My fear is that if Thomas Brown, whatever happens, if he does really, really well, and a team's like, we want that guy as our head coach, and he gets picked off by another team, you have another offensive coordinator that comes in, and he has a different voice, or you go back to Frank Reich as the voice in his ear calling plays, which we know right now doesn't work. So my fear is that he's going to have a revolving door of voices in his ear, which can wreck young quarterbacks early in their careers. Can. But here's the thing. If you realize, Carolina Panthers, if Thomas Brown and Bryce Young, those two work, you better pay Thomas Brown like he's a head coach so he doesn't go anywhere. If you realize those two work together, you better make sure Thomas Brown does not leave.
What would it take for Thomas Brown to leave after this year? Because after an 0-6 start, he's still the offensive coordinator, and technically his offense is 23rd in the NFL in total offense, and they are 0-6. So do the Panthers have to come out and go 11-0 for the rest of the season for him to get another job? It almost feels as if like year 2, unless David Tepper makes a big decision, feels like year 2 is almost guaranteed if the Panthers just go out there and win you at least a couple or 3 or 4 games for the rest of the season.
Well,
I'm not even sure that he'd even get that opportunity right now for the Panthers.
The question is that, okay, who is actually truly coming up with the offensive game plan? Was it Thomas Brown? Was it Frank Reich? Because honestly, by the conversations that we had, or at least we saw with Frank Reich talking to the media earlier this week, it seemed like, well, yeah, I guess now that, that I'm turning over play calling and a lot of the offensive game plan over to Thomas Brown, I guess I will have more free time to go into the defensive meetings or special teams and things like that. But he said, he's like, well, I'm still primarily going to focus on offense. Seemed like Frank Reich was just mostly just in the offensive meetings doing the offensive game planning. So, okay, now if Thomas Brown takes over and all of a sudden you start seeing a flip in terms of the production from Bryce Young, the creativity offensively, because here's the thing. Thomas Brown comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. And my goodness, if you share the same restroom with Sean McVay, NFL teams want to have you. Let's be real. So if he starts to show that progress starting next week, I think even if the Panthers go 500 the rest of the season, right? Let's say it's just roughly let's go 500 the rest of the way, or right around that. People are going to look and say, wait, hold on. You took a rookie quarterback with a terrible roster, and when you took over as play calling, you did that. I can only imagine what he can do with our great quarterback, with our better roster.
So let's say they finish the season 5-6 after the bye week. So that would make them 5-11. Do you think a team can sell their fan base on, I'm pulling an offensive coordinator who's coming from a 5-11 team as our new head coach? I don't think so. So it almost kind of feels like this is potentially beneficial because like this, they get to work on this and perfect it towards the end of the season. And we can talk a little bit, maybe this is a good spot to talk about what's coming up after the bye week. But, I do think there's some bowl games there, but it's just going to be hard to sell a fan base somewhere else in the NFL who more than likely will already suck, right? Probably already has a bad record. Hey, we're taking this guy who's the offensive coordinator from a 5-11 team, and we're bringing him over here, or 5-12 team, I guess it would be 5-12 team, and we're bringing him over here to be our head coach or whatever. I don't know if that's going to work.
I don't know.
And let me be real about this. Black too. So it's going to take a lot. Like, let's look at Eric Bieniemy. Everything that he did with the Kansas City Chiefs, he was the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs when they won 2 Super Bowls and basically barely lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots, and also lost in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Right? He was the head guy during that period. Still hasn't gotten a head coaching job. Had to leave to prove he could call plays with somebody else.
Yeah.
So let's just also be real about his positioning in the NFL, because it's going to take more than just this 1 year, especially if they only go 5-12. The Panthers are going to have to really do a lot for him to get that look.
To be determined what he can do. He's got to prove himself. He's never been a play caller in the NFL. He did it a little bit during the preseason. He has some play calling experience when he was at the University of Miami previously, early in his coaching career. To be determined on what Thomas Brown can do. But I'm excited because let's be real, what Frank Reich was doing was not very good.
No, it wasn't.
So that's the first thing to come out of the Carolina Panthers this week. The second one we actually found out Wednesday of this week. I know this episode comes out on Thursday, so Wednesday this week, we learned that Jeremy Chinn, safety, suffered a quad injury against the Miami Dolphins, out up to 6 weeks. Now, here's the thing. 2 things on this. One, Ejiro Evero was not the defensive coordinator for the Panthers, wasn't really playing him a whole lot anyway, which is just mind-boggling with all the injuries that they've had on defense, that you still want to play one of your top guys. Clearly,
Only
you
about
either,
50% of the snaps for the season.
which just blows my mind.
Wild.
It's just crazy. Like, you have a wild card piece that can float around in different places, and you choose not to play him with despite all the whatever. That's a different conversation. But the big thing we've heard with Jeremy Chinn, along with guys like Brian Burns, Donte Jackson, Terrace Marshall Jr., these guys were in conversations for trades. Trade deadline is on Halloween at 4 p.m. That's when the trade deadline is. So it's just a couple of weeks away. What are the Carolina Panthers going to do at the trade deadline? This injury to Jeremy Chinn severely drops his stock when it comes to a team that could potentially trade for him, because he's in the final year of his contract. And if he's going to miss up to 6 weeks, teams aren't going to be willing to give much of anything to trade for him, which kind of stinks, because if the Panthers aren't going to use him, you got to get assets, because this team needs some players. And if you're not going to use that guy, if you can go potentially get a draft pick that you can use to replace or to find a piece that actually going to help you play on the field, you need that. But right now, his trade value just plummeted.
Of course, that's horrible for the Panthers and their future outlook. And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. We don't want to see Jeremy Chinn go. But if you're not going to use this guy the way he should be used, then you clearly don't seem to have like a future, especially if the same coaching staff is in place next year.
Mm-hmm.
You clearly don't seem to have him as part of your plans for the future. Just go ahead and get something for him, because this is somebody that, whether he's traded to another team or signs with another team in the offseason as a free agent, he is going to go somewhere. He's going to be very impactful no matter where he goes. And somebody is going to say, wow, the Carolina Panthers let this guy go?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, it is kind of a blow that you can't go get something for him. But the other part of me is just kind of also wondering, when you see all these injuries, and I don't know, Dennis, if you've been in a situation like this on the teams you've coached or the teams you've played on in the past, but like, you're seeing all these injuries, and you have quad, hamstring, ankle. Let's take the ankle out of there because that happened into a freak accident during the game. But all of these guys in your secondary have these leg injuries,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not bone breaks. These are tissue, basically,
soft tissue,
injuries.
yeah.
What's going on in practice? What's going on with training and the training staff? Like, that's something I'm starting to wonder. It doesn't have anything to do with the turf that's on the field. That we've heard complaints, especially back in the Detroit Lions game back in December 24th last season, that the Panthers field is horrible. It's not one of the better turf fields in the NFL. So I'm starting to kind of question either coaching staff, training staff, or the turf surface right there at Bank of America Stadium.
I don't know if it's necessarily a surface thing when it comes to soft tissue all the time, because you got to think that the game in Miami, Jeremy Chinn, that was played on grass. But it's interesting that I didn't even thought about this, because DJ Chark, hamstring injury, Xavier Woods, hamstring injury, JC Horn, hamstring injury, quad injury for
Von Bell.
I'll say Von Bell. Was he quad or hamstring?
I think it was hamstring for Xavier Woods. And
quad for Von Bell.
Quad for Von Bell. Quad
then
for
we have
Jeremy
the quad for Jeremy Chinn. There's a little bit of a trend there.
It means something.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a trend there. And then we also see in the offseason, there's the groin injury that still seems to be plaguing Miles Sanders, even though he was out this past week with the shoulder injury. This guy's just been banged up. But my question for you is this, Chris. When it comes to Jeremy Chinn, we talked about the trade value and the trade value dropping. If the Panthers are looking to trade, whether it's Donte Jackson that you mentioned, whether it's Brian Burns, whether it's Terrace Marshall Jr., seeing that the injury took place in their most recent game with the bye week now taking place, are you looking to make that move before you play your next game? Before you take on the Houston Texans? Are you looking to make the trades before then? Because if Burns or any of these other guys get hurt, well, guess what? Any sort of trade value that you would get for those guys is going to severely drop too. Or you might get nothing for them, if anything. I'm wondering if this might accelerate that process for the Carolina Panthers.
I certainly would hope that, as far as Burns is concerned, that is not a serious consideration.
Oh, I think it's dead serious. We keep hearing that name popping around from different people in the media that are insiders. Yeah, that's a serious
But
thing.
it also popped up last year, and they nixed all the trades, ideas and stuff for that.
Mhm.
So that also could be something that's floated around by other teams that's just wanting to get it out there. Like, hey, we would take this guy if you made him available. That's also another way that could get out there. I would
True.
hope that they wouldn't take that too seriously unless they're getting a similar package to what the Rams offered them last year to at least try to get a first back. And I don't think you're getting that right now with Brian Burns. So I would hope that's not being taken serious because you're still going to need a great pass rusher in the future. We heard what Aaron Rodgers said about the Panthers. You got the quarterback, you got the pass rusher. Now you just need to build around everybody else. So there you go. But as far as everybody else, yeah, I would take this bye week to try to see if you can go ahead and shop it. Just go ahead and get it done, so that you're not keeping everybody hanging. After the bye week, though, let's talk about the schedule after that really quick as we're going to end this.
Yeah.
I think personally, you're coming back with a lot of winnable games going through December. Honestly, as there is a chance that you could come out of the bye week and go 3-0. Here's the reason: Houston, they're still building. I know that CJ Stroud has started to look good and all that good stuff, and he's won some games, and people are really, but he's still a rookie as well, and he's going to have his issues.
They've
So
already won as many games
that,
this season as they did last year.
Right. So who's to say that they can't drop a game to the Panthers? And then you're going to have two teams that have quarterback injuries of their own, with the Colts. Anthony Richardson going to have season-ending surgery on his shoulder, and we don't know what's going on with Justin Fields. We know he got injured, but we don't know how long he's going to be out. Dallas is going to be tough. I'll just chalk that up as a loss for the Panthers. At Tennessee, maybe you could win that. At Tampa, I don't know. Maybe you could win that. New Orleans, Atlanta, to me, in the division, you got to get at least a couple of those.
Yeah.
Right? Like there to me, there are some winnable games here. And I think it will be a good way to try to get momentum. Now, I think the Panthers, if they get wins, will probably only finish with 4. But there's a lot of winnable games coming up after this. I would hope that they would take the opportunity to get some of those.
Well, everyone on their schedule that sees the Carolina Panthers goes, that's a winnable game.
Exactly.
That's a winnable game. It's the way this league works. All right. Enjoy your Sundays. Enjoy your Sunday this weekend. Enjoy some fall weather.
No Carolina Panthers lost this Sunday.
Enjoy it, folks. Enjoy it. So no episode this Sunday, obviously, because there's no game. But we will have another episode for you all next week. So again, make sure you subscribe. Leave us comments. Let us know your thoughts on Thomas Brown. Let us know your thoughts on the potential trades for the Carolina Panthers. Do you have faith in Scott Fitterer or David Tepper? Because a lot of people in the comment sections in the past episodes say not so much. Either way, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything that we put out. Till next time, enjoy yourself.